All right, welcome. Hey, good to see you. So glad you finally made it. Today I'm going to record epithelial tissues and connective tissues, so don't expect some fancy introduction tomorrow. You're gonna come to class tomorrow and I'm gonna be like, hey, it's connective tissues. And so that's the jam, yo. So first we're gonna look at epithelial tissues, and what's funny is actually this slide says smooth muscle, intestine, longitudinal section, which means that we'll actually see all three tissue types. We're gonna see smooth muscle, we're gonna see epithelial tissues and connective tissues. So since we're doing all of it, I figured I'd just zoom in here. All right, so here we go. This is a small intestine smooth muscle slide. You don't really have to look at smooth muscle yet, but what I wanted you to see is how you can see the epithelial tissue, the connective tissue, and the muscle tissue in an organ. So the pointer is pointing at the epithelial tissue. And come on, scope. Come on, phone. We'll work right below that. You can see, or to the right of the pointer here is areolar connective tissue. So this is all epithelium. This is areolar connective tissue. It's that lamina propria that's supporting the epithelium. This is folding. So now this is the epithelium again. Oh, epithelium, epithelium. This is the lamina propria supporting that epithelial tissue. And then this is the smooth muscle below it. Okay, so the structure that the pointer's on right now is called the glomerulus. And this is in the kidney. And it's got two types of tissue, simple squamous epithelium and simple cuboidal epithelium. And so I'm gonna actually zoom in one more and show you. The best place to look at simple squamous epithelial tissue, I think, is actually the lungs. But you can see it here, right there at the tip of the pointer. I'm trying to focus it. And all around it, so do you see right at the tip of the pointer how that's just one thin cell layer, and that kind of, there's a white space there. On the outside of that one space, or that white space, is one cell layer thick of squamous cells. And then around it, man, this is tricky. Then all around it is the simple cuboidal tissue of the renal tubule. So here's basement membrane right there. And then the lumen is the white open space you see. So the apical surface, or the free surface, is opposite the pointer. Come on. And so that's simple cuboidal, and that's simple squamous. Okay, this is simple squamous epithelial tissue that's easier to see. This is in the lungs. So the alveoli of the lungs are the air sacs across which we do gas exchange. Thinnest possible barrier in the body right here. So I'm gonna go to 40, and you can see that here. Oh, look how beautiful. So each of these little cells, each of these little purple spots is the nucleus of the cell. So this is hundreds of cells coming together to form this air sac in the lungs. That's simple squamous. Okay, this is simple cuboidal, and you can see that, like, the basement membrane, whoa, is right. Like, that's the lumen. So that's the apical side here. The basement membrane's opposite of that. Oh, there's a great one at the top above my pointer there. So that actually looks like it's transitioning to columnar. So you can tell these are simple because it's just one cell layer thick, and they're cuboidal because the cells are about as tall as they are wide. So the things about some tissues, or most tissues, is that you transition from one cell to the next. So on the practical, it would be very obvious. Like, these are very obviously cuboidal cells here, all around here. They're as tall as they are wide. Basal surface right there at the pointer, simple cuboidal tissue all around. So this is simple columnar epithelium. This is the apical surface that the pointer is indicating. And this is, if I had to guess, I'd say the large intestine based on the number of goblet cells present, because the large intestine's big job is to reclaim all your water and solidify your waste. So you have to have a lot of mucus in the large intestine to lubricate that waste that's passing through. So this is a section that's folding on itself. You can see, so if that's the apical surface, on the opposite side, you can tell this is columnar because we've got those basally located purple nuclei. And then all of the tissue under that is that lamina propria, which is the areolar connective tissue that serves our mucosae. So that's simple columnar epithelium. We only have one more simple epithelial tissue to look at. So this is the trachea, and we can see lots of tissue types in it. There's actually some cartilage to the left. The pointer is indicating our mucosal layer, the pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. So this is our last simple tissue, but it looks stratified. So they call it pseudostratified because if you look, it's kind of hard to tell, but the nuclei of these cells are varying distances away from the apical surface. And what's cool in here, what I like about this slide, is that you can actually see the cilia on top of those cells. So see those tiny pink lines? That's cilia. And see that like black strip? That's mucus. So there's actually mucus we can see in this slide. So the little black line is like, that's the mucus that they're secreting. So the goblet cells are like seeing blue in this slide. And those little pink things are the cilia that then beats that mucus. So yeah, this is in the trachea. So this is part of the mucus escalator. It beats the mucus up to your pharynx where you can swallow it. All right, on to stratified tissues. So this is our non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelial tissue. And this is the apical surface. This is in the esophagus. So we can tell that this is stratified squamous because those cells right there by that pointer are really flat looking. Come on. And it's stratified because there are so many layers of cells. So the basal surface, so that's the apical surface. And so we call it stratified squamous because those cells there are flat. So, okay, oh, come on, there we go. That's the apical surface that's free and would be exposed to food and abrasion. So we can readily slough off those cells as food scrapes by. And then as we move here, there's the basal surface right there. And then underneath there is the areolar connective tissue, that's the lamina propria. But we can tell this is the basal surface because it's attached to our basement membrane. It's highly cellular. So our epithelial tissues, that's another thing I don't know if was mentioned in class, but they're highly cellular. They've got lots of cells packed together. So those are many, many layers. And then it's non-keratinized, it's wet. You'll be able to tell the difference because when we look at the keratinized version, it's dry and you can actually really see that. All right. Okay, so this is our keratinized version of stratified squamous epithelial tissue. And again, you can see that it's squamous because those cells on the apical surface are really flat. And then we can tell that it is stratified because we've got so many layers. So here's the basal layer, and this is the apical surface. And you can tell that it's the keratinized version because it's dry. And how can I tell that it's dry? Look at that. Compared to the last version, like, yeah, totally dry on top. Those 20 to 30 layers of dead skin cells right there. So this is an entire bladder that we're looking at. And this is a big muscle called the detrusor muscle. This is the lumen where the urine is. So this is where our transitional epithelium is. So let's zoom in. And what you can see about our transitional epithelial cells is that they don't quite look squamous, they don't quite look cuboidal. So we definitely would never have a stratified tissue that would have this many layers that would be cuboidal. If you ever see stratified cuboidal, it's only like 2 layers thick. So if you've got cells stacked like this and they look cuboidal, it must be transitional. And if you have cells stacked like this and there's they look squamous, you could say, well, how do I know that's not stratified squamous? And I would say because your stratified squamous tissues don't have a huge muscle under them. like this one does. So let me see if I can, come on, there we go. So, let's see if we can find another spot. Just work with me here. So, yeah, if we come down through here, you'll see there's our connective tissue, and then we get to our smooth muscle. So that's how we know it's bladder, is by seeing everything. You're like, lady, how am I going to see everything? I can't move this scope. Well, I'll find you a good slide from your lab guide or from the other lab website. But look, see how they kind of look cuboidal right there? Well, not even really. They just look circular. So you don't see stratified tissues like that anywhere. So except for in the bladder where we've got transitional epithelium. And so this must be an empty bladder. And as it fills, those cells will stretch out and become more squamous looking. And you would also see these folds stretch out so that we'd have, instead of like these little gaps of white, we'd have like just a big open white space that was full of urine. All right, that's epithelial tissues. See you back here tomorrow for connective tissues.